Now, it's this time of year, and I always laugh about this. Here I am. I'm just hanging around waiting for 9 o'clock. You can't start an engine here till 9 o'clock. So what I did, I ran out, made an extra set of lines. Got some of my stuff organized here, but got a couple of props ready to test. But basically, here's what happens. The air is good, and you can't fly. Now, as soon as it gets to be 9 o'clock, the air will get bad, and then it's time to start an engine. It's unbelievable. One thing really good about flying here early in the morning, usually I'm the first one here. If not the first one of the first ones. And for the first maybe hour or maybe half an hour, I really do get to fly back-to-back flights, but then it's the other members of the club, and obviously nobody wants to be the field hogs here. The other people do. It's a beautiful, it looks like it's going to be a beautiful day. And I really hope we're going to be able to at least get maybe some coaching if anybody gets here, some fine-tuning or something. Something of value other than just one flight after another practicing. But it looks like we've lucked out weather-wise. The air really hasn't gone totally bad yet. But that word yet.
You got a pair of flies?
Yeah, my toolbox. Take what you need. It's 9 o'clock already, isn't it? You got to watch, huh?
Yeah, close enough.
Yeah, I don't want to start an engine before 9. So what'd the cop say? Anything cool? He just took the plate and that was it?
He just came and took it. He goes, it looks like it just might have fell off. I said, but I know the guys here wouldn't have threw it in the garbage. They would have, like, you know, stuck it on defense.
Yeah, made landing gear out of it or something.
Yeah, to let somebody know where it is.
Yeah,
it just seemed kind of strange to find it in the garbage.
Yeah, I know. He looked a little bit betwixt and between.
And he turned around and he just says, all right. He goes, we'll run the plate and we'll see what happens. Well, was I going to argue with him?
Nah. I don't know how much longer we're going to go before we get some, if we get some decent air. You can see from the last flight, really shifty all over the place here. Well, we're starting to get some fuel burned, and there's obviously some other people at the field, so we're going to have to kind of share the circle for the next couple hours. The now infamous Robert Sabatino Nobler. The fillets look good, I'll tell you.
Yeah.
That stuff I think is going to work out. Midgley's got it. He's going to test it out.
Mm-hmm.
Now, what'd you figure out with your prowler? Did you ever get that running right?
I glued everything back.
Just glued it all back together, put a new aluminum pad on it, or what'd you do?
I use your pad.
Oh, okay. Yeah, they'll work
I put
okay.
fiberglass on the nose.
Fiberglass it and hit it with a hairdryer so it soaks in.
Did you try to squeeze out yet? No.
So old traditions here. Mike's going to give me a flying lesson here later on in the day. Looks like it's going to be a decent day. The FBI was just here looking for you.
Oh, good. I'm glad I missed them.
How you doing, Ken?
I'm all right. How are you?
Good. Hey, that looks nice.
Yeah, Nancy's is real pretty too.
So you got two of them?
Got two of them.
Oh, okay,
Hers
good.
is blue and purple,
Yeah, yeah,
and
yeah.
this is the twin. They fly great.
Yeah, they're good planes. Nice. Rodax kit? Or is it Goldberg? Who makes the kit? I don't even know.
Rodak makes the kit.
Rodak, yeah.
And we built one from the kit, and this one's from contest boat.
Yeah.
And I added on.
That's what Dick Kurth always likes, is the busters.
Right. Busters and shoestrings.
Shoestrings, right. Who's up here? Peabody? Nice Randy Hallcroft muffler. Ah, come on, Robert.
That's some extra holes drilled in.
Quite a Nobler. Who wants to see this trash bucket fly? I want to see that Nobler go. Aldrich is sitting in Texas waiting to see that plane fly. Come on.
He's got to warm up.
He's got to warm up, right. We'll warm him up. Give me a soldering iron. Well, you can see by now there's 25 people here, so we're probably not going to get many more flights. This is going to be the end of the day here. We're floating in one by one by one. It's a beautiful day. Oh, they got the twin going here. Had the twin going. Super realistic tub. The way the sucker flies, it looks like a real plane. One of my favorites. Nice cockpit detail here, nice. Doggy's little tub. This one flies good too. Excuse me, sir. Sir? Is my arm in the picture? No, that doesn't matter. $9.99.
$189.
Oh, jeez. You guys are real generous.
Hey, look. Money's no object.
Yeah. If I was doing this for money, I'd be Donald Trump, believe me. ever do with that Tiger Cat I gave you? Tell the truth now. I want the truth. I gave you guys a perfectly good...
Nothing but the truth.
With the engines, the props...
demolished it.
Karen?
Yeah.
Karen Meadow crashed it?
Yeah, no, she went into me with combat.
Oh, you guys are terrible. Give this guy a perfectly good Tiger Cat. 2 motors.
Oh, she's loaded.
And you thought the circus only came to New York. Boy, oh boy. You need 14 guys. They didn't need this many guys to get a real Tiger Cat going.
I didn't do nothing like that one.
Well, I'm glad the Japs aren't bombing Pearl Harbor or something while waiting for you guys. Woo! Imagine if Howard Hughes had this much trouble getting the motor started. Look at this guy. We're ready, baby. Oh boy, here we go. Fine tuning. Imagine if you were the pilot of a real plane and these guys were setting the needle valve for you. Alright, finally got it started. Anyway, we never really filmed a day of, well, because I never usually come out and fly with the club on the weekend. It's family time. Well, at least according to Karen, it's family time. Usually work on my house or farm time. Anyway, everybody seems in a real good, fluffy mood here. They got some scale jobs and some stunt jobs and some twins that don't start, some twins that do start. You never really know what's going to happen. Augie, of course, the star of the scale circle. How heavy? Oh, good memories, tradition. Many, many contest wins, and now Mike's enjoying it every weekend. Obler? All right. No, that this is Robert Sabatino's first full fuselage ship. He did a lot of experimental things, including this aero epoxy fillet material, some tricky finishing stuff that he experimented with, and it looks like it's working okay. Common problem that happened with Robert is the spray bar in the motor has a little booger on the thread, so when you go in on the needle, you'd get to about the 6th turn, and you couldn't go in anymore. Well, what we did with the pliers is just keep running it in and out, just to try to salvage it for the day. But one thing to always remember is when you drill out an engine, or if it's already drilled out and you're just putting a spray bar in, don't force it in where it's grinding its way in. Make sure the hole is big enough that you can just slide it in and out without boogering up the tips of the threads. Those needle valves are made out of soft brass. That's a real important thing to remember. How many turns out did that usually start at?
Joe's gonna go.
Robert, you can put the cowling on. That's gonna work
The
fine.
only thing is if I put the cowling on, I gotta take the needle back.
No, fly without the cowling. Fly it until you know what it says.
Hate when that happens. Especially when you bring all this loose stuff to the field. First thing in the morning, too. You need a magnet.
Get it up there, Robert.
A magnet, you need a bobcat to get these things out of them. Hey, that's right where the poison Zumac is, right where your tools went into. You allergic to poison ivy?
Oh, yeah.
You are now.
Hey, ready?
Did it just wore out?
Retaining clip on one of the valves.
Oh, it sounded neat. I watched it one day. We're going to be calling him Robert the Needle Valve Sabatino. Even though I made the mistake, we'll blame it on him.
So I should just...
Why should I take the blame just because it's my fault? Should start right up. They said about the Titanic. Don't bother holding it, Mike, just in case it's stuck. Yeah, the battery that you had was dead. Robert, you need some scars on your fingers.
This is Polish.
Everybody's saying you're kind of a wimp.
Yeah, I am.
We need some calluses here.
You know what? These hands make me money. I can't afford cutting hair like this.
Come on, stick your hand in the prop like Peabody. Be a man. That'll go now. One choke. One choke will do it.
That's it.
We haven't used that first aid kit in a long time anyways. Probably plenty of bandages in it. Oh boy. This is a bad advertisement for Duke Fox or whoever made that engine. Chokes. See, now you got no fuel in there. Nothing. Nothing's dripping out. Nothing's happening. So try 3 chokes. Yeah, you got some fuel in there now. Now it's going to pop. That battery okay? You want another battery?
Yeah, you got another one?
Battery. Yeah, you got a nice big one there now. Holy man, what a club is not looking good today.
Want to turn it over?
Video record. Robert does not tighten the prop. He does not charge his battery. And he boogers up the needle valve, taking it in and out, and then blames Wendy.
We're going to be all over the You're going to be all over the country.
Make sure your fly is zipped up. Okay, come on, Robert. Oh, I'll tell you, this is embarrassing. There I was. Da-da-da-da-da. The guys up at Scott Smith's are going to be hilarious when they see this. Look at this. Start-o-matic. Uh-oh. Strangers in the night. Boom calling people. Wandering in the night. Embarrassing moments and stunts.
Something for you, Mike?
No, you're just, if you can take the muffler off, opening up even one drill size is a tremendous amount. See, the idea of those mufflers is fine, but the holes are too small. Even if you just take a reamer and open them up a little, anything, just get them open a little bit. Or even if you open 2 or 3 of them, it's better. You'll see, the way you know is when you go to start it again, you're going to have to open up the needle. Wait till you see like 5 clicks when you open those holes up. That's how restrictive that thing is. Yeah, it was okay the first flight. If you can, just unscrew it. Oh, Al, you got some? Great.
Yeah, we got some.
All
You
right.
have to unscrew it or...
Enough to open up the holes. You don't need a precision drill press. Those mufflers are real nice, except for they're light and everything, but the problem is all those little holes. See what happens when you have a lot of little holes instead of 2 or 3 big holes, you have too much wall area. And what happens, it just gets to be too restrictive. And that's the case with these. The motors are always marginal. The holes should be just 1 or 2 drill sizes bigger.
I'll find them at home tonight.
Be hot.
You got a nut back there.
What are you talking about? Let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. There's 14 holes, but they're all very small. So what happens is, even though you have enough area for the gas to get out in terms of swept area, you have a tremendous amount of wall area, and the wall area is the restriction. So what we're going to try to do is just open it. What kind of tool you got there, Al?
Oh, we got a handy pipe reamer.
Okay, a pipe reamer. Oh, what a guy. Go ahead. Ream away, baby. Just make them a little bit bigger, each one. And if you make them too big, just put 440 screws in the holes.
I always do every other one.
Do every other. This way you got some wall thickness in between. And if you go too far, just put screws in. It's not a big deal. That's an excellent tip. Little idea. What did you make that out of? A cardboard box?
Yeah.
And you put some pipe? A cat coffin, okay.
That actually came with the foam wing.
A foam wing box and some pipe. That's that insulation for light. That's a nice little gizmo to hold your plane upside down while you're doing maintenance. Look at these body movements as the plane comes into view.
Not yet, but in a little while.
He's on long lines. Who cut his line? What'd you do, give him 90-foot line? Oh, you guys are bad. He's on Kajeski's old 60-ship line. I gotta back up, this guy's on really long line. Yeah, it's turned out to be a nice day at the club field. Everybody's screwing around with everybody else's stuff. I guess that's half the fun. You're going to have to go out on a needle too, baby. Give me that battery. Whenever you open up the back first, you're going to have to go out. You got that stick? Do you let more gas out? You don't have to put more gas in.
I might.
That's any better than the ones before.
What did he say?
Muffler.
Come on here to circle on the field, watch everybody struggle with motors and props and feel like they've never done any of this.
He's suffering from, it took me so long to build this, I don't want to crash it syndrome. Quiet! Actually, the plane turns beautifully, as probably all Noblers do. Looks like it's on rails. I don't know what he's afraid of. Are you all doing the same thing, too?
You're asking me.
11.3 on that. 11.3? That's a real powerful motor, though. That's a hot rod. Running good now. It's Carl's radio control Guardian. You're wondering what the antenna is. The plane's controlled from outside the circle. It's radio control with a radio. Oh, who's flying from outside the circle? Let's see. Usually Augie. Yeah, Augie's the one flying the plane. And basically, Carl is just acting to be up and down on the elevators. Augie's giving him the motor control.
That's what they call a real big stooge.
A 250-pound stooge. What I was thinking of it. I would like that. Now this would be my first choice.
Then it gets nervous, wouldn't it?
Oh. That's in good taste. Just give me that transmitter. Come on, you sissy. Give me that transmitter. I'll show you how to have fun with Carl.
He's wearing them out now.
Oh, man. I thought this was a control line club.
See how much gas he's got in the tank.
Look at this.
Well, radio control line.
Oh, man. I'm going to get a garage door open and have some fun when Carl's on his final approach.
Right, you went on this here? 56.
This is Carl's other model, and this is one of the most unique motor mounting systems, I guess, in the history of the planet. I don't know if you can see, he's got radial mounts mounted to a plywood with an internally mounted tank, a cheek cowl, same guy that's flying the carrier ship there on radio control, or scale ship, whatever it is. Carl went. I'm so impressed. I had two lilies blooming at the same time here. One's hiding behind the back here. Anyway, there was a little bit of sad news. We lost the fish last night. I kind of stayed up with him last night with some medicine and stuff that the guy who sold me some of the fish had given me. And we tried to nurse him and quarantine him and everything. And we got 3 new fish. I don't know if you can see these guys. They're these bubble eye guys. I don't know. I guess you can't see them well in here. Yeah, they're hungry. They're waiting to eat. But what I'm going to do, I have to go return the medicine and the net to this fellow Luder I bought the fish from. And if you've had any interest in ever seeing a unique person, I mean, we try to tape some of life's unique things. That big train set down there, and obviously some of the things that George has done. But this guy has, well, I'm going to leave it on the video. You'll see it. We're going to go over his house right now. Okay, we're over at Lou's, and I just wanted to, this is the guy I bought most of my fish from. Of course, he's got the tanks with the little fish that are for sale. And he requested, this is where we got our fish from, these little guys. But check this out. This is unbelievable. See, now they think I'm going to feed them. And these are really prize koi. He has really got beauty. I have seen every fish within 100 miles of my house, and he has got some beauties here. They are unbelievable. Now this is 21,000 gallons. Get an idea. It's got a little bit of a net over it. Well, they all think I'm going to feed him now. He's got this one big beauty here. Now, the thing with these fish is he knows everyone by name. They come to him, of course. He can call them, and they come. And when he feeds, he's not here to feed them now. I'm here alone. When he feeds them, they almost eat each other. This is Michael Jackson, the big black and white one. There are some beauties here. Look at these guys. Just to get an idea, this is really I guess it was at one time a swimming pool, but the quality of these fish, these are really some kind of special fish here. This big orange one, look at this guy. Oh man. Anyway, I thought you'd enjoy seeing this. This is an unbelievable treat. As I said, I'm going to be getting some more fish. I'm looking to wind up with about 30 fish in my pond, but you can see what we got here. Wow. Now, if you don't really know, there's supposed to be 13 variety of koi, and I'm sure he's got all 13 here. But there's some that are really rare and some that are ultra expensive. And some that are just fun to have. And what we're trying to do is build up a little koi collection. And of course we want to start with them as babies and watch them grow. So you can get an idea. There's Michael Jackson again down there. This is an unbelievable thing. These fish are really high quality fish. Now in today's mail, hey, Lou Klein sent me a real nice letter with some information for Stunt News that he wanted printed. Of course we'll try to get that into this month's column. We're running close up the deadline, but nice picture of Lou, and I've heard his entrepreneurial project is coming along just fine. Just one other thing I wanted to thank Lou for is, in fact last night, I'll tell you Lou the truth, we went and used up the gift certificate for the East Coast Championship Series. Instead of getting me a trophy, they got me a gift certificate at a pizza place, and it was delicious. Thanks a lot, Lou, and thanks for doing all the stuff that you do, much of which is behind the scenes. We all appreciate it. Thanks a lot. Anyway, another thing in today's mail, and boy, I'll tell you, if you want to see some real craftsmanship and workmanship, got they're actually the mock-up original plans to the Seafire now that Bob Martens has done. And these are, I think, a major improvement, much more detail than the Spitfire had, and a lot of little extra stuff. Just a few of the details that really aren't on, well, they aren't on the Spitfire. So the castering tail wheel for one. Move up here to the arrestor hook, all the outlines. Now see what I was doing, of course, if you're following along on the video, you know I've been sending him out the original parts or templates of them. All of the little recesses for the carrier hook. All of the little details in the wire bending fixture for the sliding canopy. The bulkheads. The canopy detail, including that gun sight. Oh, I love that gun sight. Anyway, the blisters for the Griffin motor installation. The exhausts. All of the extra plywood tubes, all the laminations. But see, this is what I call a real set of plans. This is not just, just an example I show you, well, here's the outline or something. No. This is really a well-detailed, and this is Bob Martens at his best. Control installation, all of the horns, the hatches, all of the 3 views for the Ray Brother linkage, all of the significant things with the grain direction on them. This is really what makes it, to me, a collector item or something that's worth saving. Whether you want to build it or not, it's really nice to have a set of these. Anyway, they're going to be in stock real soon, and, well, let me go over the wing, too. I know we did the cannon details, even. Let me just pull this back. See, there's 2 big sheets. We've got the gear block installations, the cannons, the dummy cannons, all of the ribs, of course. And this is going to be a real challenge when we start to do what I assume is going to be, look at all the detailing. The landing gear detailing. You saw us try to break these out of Tsunami's wing. Never. Even put the roundels, the scale roundels. He even gave me President Nixon's phone number. Let me go get the phone. Anyway, I really think this is one of maybe the best sets of plans, most detailed and most accurate. Period. Just to give you an idea. Now, one of the things I always get annoyed at when I get a set of plans from somebody and it only shows one wing panel or something, and you got to figure the other one out. Nah, not with Bob Martens. Everything is detailed, every rib, every little thing you could possibly detail. He has really done a super job, even the little details of the wingtips. Just to give you an idea how big these are, you get an idea. Here's a full-size stunt ship right here. Look at the size of these plans. They're like you could make a carpet for your next wedding out of them. Anyway, Bob, they're awesome. Copies are in stock now for anybody that would like to add these to their collection, or even better, build one. Now in today's mail too, this comes from Australia, from Noel Corney. And I've read this letter about 14 times. He sent one of the most interesting letters I've ever gotten from anybody. And I'm trying to surmise it here. Each one of these planes looks just a little bit different. And he mentioned that he never builds 2 planes exactly the same. I've included a couple more shots of some of my planes over the last 4 years. This is the prototype 60-inch wingspan 60 ounce with an ASP 46. Built for the Walla Walla Nationals. Flew well, but I did not have good motor runs. Now this is number 2. This is a smaller version. 58-inch span, 56 ounce. Crashed and totaled on about the 8th flight. Push rod broke. Now this photo shows a clone of the number 2 built in 3 weeks, powered by an Enya 45 AAC rear exhaust, Brian Ether pipe, spinner, prop. Number 3 has won for me the last state champs and a second in the one before that. Even after crashing in the Clover on my second flight. This photo shows the plane after a complete repair. Number 4 is the latest model. Has a low aspect tail removed and fitted with a more had the rear low aspect tail removed. I can hardly read the writing thanks to my great eyes here. I better get my glasses. Okay, tail removed and fitted with a more conventional one. Flies better, but not as good as number 3. I have a new one underway at the moment, and when I finish it, I'll be sure to send some pictures. And he goes on and on to say, document a little bit of the interest that he has in stunt. He now has plans to about the half of the planes we have, so, hey, I hope you'll build a Seafire. And of course, thanks for the photos. Another nice thing he said, and this is the kind of stuff, hey, I'm going to send this to Tom Morris just to give him a little idea of just how his efforts, Tom Morris's efforts, of course, are well appreciated. Pampa gets better. I just love the crash. Well, I love it when you don't crash at all. Anyway, thanks a whole lot, Noel, and we will pass all of these on to Stunt News.
We was chasing a hen one people Friday. Where did Robinson Crusoe go with Friday on Saturday? So where did Robinson Crusoe go with Friday on Saturday night? Not in the road, and on Sunday morning they come staggering home.
Anyway, shut that off for 1 second, Ken. This is something everybody should be aware of. This is one of those things. Props coming loose, and boy, we had Joe Adamusco is the king of loose props. What Ken is doing, he's got an engraving tool. There's several ways to do this. This is done with a parting wheel. I feel this is a little better, or both. But anyway, in lieu of any other way, just roughing it up with sandpaper is good. These little tools are about $15, engraving tools. And every surface, every washer, except on the side, you really don't need it on the side, that the nut is going to just grind that out. But on things that squeeze together, where you have clutch face surfaces, that's an excellent little way to do it. And what Ken is doing is a great idea. Get all, it's a rainy day. Hey, check it out. The fish went underwater so they wouldn't get wet. What Ken did is just get every nose weight, every washer, everything, sit down with the engraving tool and do 100 of them. Good way to spend a rainy day.
And they'll be done when I need them done.
You may think I'm lying about this. These plans have been in the house 45 minutes, maybe an hour. I'll give them an hour. We've had the prototype and they're already sold. And they're going to a guy in Sao Paulo, Brazil. What the hell's the guy's name again? Anyway, call him up. I told him I got Bob Martin Seafire plans. And sent them. They're going to Brazil. The first set of plans. Let's see this. Let's hear the history of this plane now. This is a stiletto.
Yes.
Okay, it's got, the controls work nice. Looks like it's not one-to-one though. Looks like the tail moves more than the wing. Did you do that on purpose or what's that?
We don't know what we're doing yet.
Okay. Let's see, you're in the second hole and you're in the top. Okay, so it's not one. You understand what I mean by one-to-one? It means the flaps are moving.
The same.
Tail is moving more than the flaps. They should move exactly the same if you were building it the way the Danny's is or the way a kit would be. So that's one change you could make, is you could put this push rod down at the bottom hole. That would be the first thing you could do to this. Well, it looks real nice. The way you talked about it on the phone, I thought it was going to be a... How heavy does it weigh? On your scale? It's a feather. Give me the scale, George. Oh, we don't have... Wait, we got to get the other baby scale. Where's the baby scale? I'll tell you what it weighs.
Let's scale that.
Yeah, let's get the baby scale out. My weights disappeared from on here. You said it weighed 60? It really doesn't feel super duper heavy, but... Yeah, let's see what it weighs. And you got a Tiger 46, so how bad can it be? Okay, if it's 4 pounds, it's 64.
That would be 90 pounds.
Okay, it's 59 and a half. That's what it was.
That's something for me?
No, it's on the heavy side, but that isn't the end of the world. There's things you can do to make it as good as it can be at that weight. Okay, the motor's fine, that's for sure. In fact, it feels like a good 46.
No.
Now, what's binding on it, number one? Is this the way it always is? There's a bind on here. What is it, rubbing on the back here on a spinner? Or? See, that's one thing you could straighten out. See what I'm saying here?
Now find me.
It's binding on something. Let's see if it's binding up on the crankshaft. Wait, I'll show you how to check for that. Take a piece of sandpaper. Got a piece of sandpaper? Yeah, you were going to do the same thing. See if you can slide sandpaper. See, the sandpaper won't fit through there. So right up here is where it's binding. So another thing you want to do is take the prop and the spinner off, grind a little bit or sand a little bit away, because this is eating half of the power of the plane. That takes half of the power of the motor. When that heats up, the aluminum expands when it heats up and it gets worse. You know when you heat something it expands? So what happens when it expands, this gets tighter and tighter and it grinds away at that. So that's one other thing you could do. If you take the spinner and thing, or you could do right now.
Don't say anything about it.
Well, don't say anything, Stifle. You're on camera. See that? Hey. Stifle's do a confession. He murdered OJ. Oh, these guys just came up from South. Where'd you guys actually come up from now? Somewhere in South Jersey, and they drove 5 hours to get here. And I figure I'll steal that plane, mug them. Hey, Colin, how you doing?
Look on the TV.
Well, what's on TV? Yeah, the 1-to-1 is definitely something you want to. That's something you can change right away.
This is dead sun. Okay.
Okay. Let me see how good my eyes are. And this is up.
Elevator is up.
Okay, so you could change that at the same
This is
time.
being pushed down.
That's right. That's right.
I don't know.
What really happens is it flies off the elevators, and this is being pushed down. But you could change it. You can move the horn on this. Actually, the way you have it is.
Do you have to change this to make it a bit like a 16 longer?
Yeah, that would be an easy way to do it. Make another push rod. Just make a push rod a 16th longer. Put it in the hole that's all the way at the bottom. So in other words, whatever the hole is up here, you want the same hole in the back. Then everything is moving the same, 1-to-1. That's what you want to do with that. And the motor, you want to definitely get rid of that
Yeah, okay. Open
that
this.
bind up there,
Open
yeah.
this up some more. Open this on this. The body on this.
See what you want to do when you go home. Take the motor out. This has 2 degrees of offset. Here's a spare one. You can keep that one for an extra one. Next plane you build. Put this one on here. Drill the holes out so it matches. Then you want to measure from the front of the wing. Make sure the rule is parallel. And you can see you have in-thrust on it. You see what a ruler is here, where my finger is? It's 10 and 9/16. So use the same prop blade when you spin it over. You'll see your in-thrust by about more than 1/8 of an inch. Okay, another thing you want to try to do is round off the leading edge on the next plane that you build. Make sure this is more round. This is kind of pointy. That'll make it that it'll track better in level flight. You obviously monocoat well. You monocoat better than I do, in fact. Other than that, let's see. Grab this up under the sheeting. Let's see if it's nose heavy. Oh, Christ, it's balanced okay. It's fine. It's within. I just want to make sure it wasn't real tail heavy when you told me to tail.
You want to go on that beam?
No, it's ahead of the leading edge. That's all that matters. I mean, it's ahead of the sheeting. That's close enough. You could make it a lot better if you, not better, but it'll be lighter. The muffler, you could put a lighter muffler on it. You really don't need a gas tank this large. You could put a smaller tank, and you could put a plastic spinner, so that would knock maybe 3.5 ounces off it. So, and it's definitely nose heavy, so you could do that. Pick it up this way. Make sure you got plenty of tip. You probably got more than enough, in fact. Plenty of tip weight. So that's like 5-6 things you could do to make the plane better in an hour. You know what I mean? That'd be great. Between the muffler and the spinner, that's 3 ounces. You can get rid of that. What are you, removable controls?
Yeah, well, we did that for a joke. Just to see
Okay.
if we can do it.
Yeah, well,
It
it
came out halfway decent.
works fine. The controls are fine, except that,
This inch is too big.
yeah, okay.
Oh, we better go for the small ones.
Okay, but that's something you could live with. That's not a problem at all. You definitely could use a lighter muffler and a lighter spinner. I mean that would, and these, and offset for sure. Always that you have between 1/8 and 1/4 less on the outside than the inside. That's a good starting point. That's somewhere where you can start that you know you're not going to have a, you know, what we were talking about, things you can do to a heavy plane to make a heavy plane as good as it can be. This is monocoat, and George, how do they do it on RC planes? Being we have an RC expert here, world expert. Yeah.
No, you monocoat it on, you iron it on here.
Right. Put the controls at full all the way down.
All the way down, and now you monocoat it, you run the monocoat onto here, seal it in, and now when you bring the plane back, that folds right in there.
See, the sealed hinge lines help a heavy plane.
Would that be like a bump in there?
Yeah, probably it'll be a little if you don't do a neat job. If you do a neat job, it'll...
You only got the thickness of the monocoat.
I don't have a plane that's sealed here. Let me see if one of these is sealed. I can show you what I'm talking about. Oh, Christ.
A faster way would be Scotch tape.
But again, talking about, this is rubbing. I took this apart. You can see where it's rubbing right here. It leaves the... You can see what happened to the back. You see where that is? See, that's how that'll eventually wear a hole in there. Okay, another thing, we just had Kenny down here tonight. You can put a knurl. I'll put a knurl on all these for you. And, well, this one you don't need. The old Tiger ones had a nice texture to them. But the washer, too, you can put a little knurl on that. That'll help hold it. And you could use a bigger prop. You should get an 11.5/6 rev up if you can find one. I think Danny has some. Danny has some of those AHM props that they're on video that we made a sandpaper washer. Flip that over now so we can just show how much clearance. You got some clearance in there now. See, that's the way it should be. Now you're not losing any power to that binding. Now, we had a really good night last night in the shop. And I'm glad the new people that joined us last night. We had 3 new people. Look at these guys cruising here. Come on, you bada bings. I'm telling you that every morning before I go flying, this is what like a mama puppy here or something. I wanted to try to get a close-up of our new fish, but I think they're still hiding. They haven't really come out to join us for breakfast yet. We've been having breakfast out here by the pond every morning. Anyway, off to the circle burner field. Let's see what's going on today. And we finally came up to the top. The trouble is I can't focus in on him. Ah, yes, silly thing. Rusty, where'd you go? Here comes Rusty. He's coming up for here he comes. We call this guy Rusty. We have 3 of these guys, telescoping eyes, fantails. And there's 2 more in there somewhere. You know what they're doing though? Karen's going to be mad when she finds out these new fish. They love her plants. I can see that they've been in the plants all morning. See these little pieces of plant land? That's from them eating the plants. Karen's going to get you guys. You're in big trouble. You guys are in big trouble, baby.
If I had you by my side, I could be a king here on crown, on the law.
Hey, we get up here. And Don's got the circle. He beat us to the field today. I'm humiliated. Anyway, we gotta get unloaded here and get a couple flights before the wind comes up. Ooh, looks like we got some good air today. I got I guess 8 or 10 flights here already. But what I did, I made sure I have the same feel. Now let me explain this because this is one of those things that most people think isn't really important, but when you have it in your arsenal, boy is it important. What I have is 4 sets of lines now, 66, 67, 68, and 69. All with handles adjusted, and I've gone and flown them from flight to flight to flight to flight, so that I know the feel of the handle, the spacing, because I've even got it marked on here, is exactly the same. Now I've gone to the point of, well, maybe even overkill with having all of the line options available. I want to have all the options. I've never had solids on the plane yet, so what I did, knowing that if I go to solids I can get an extra foot of line probably, unless I'm on maximum length already, what I'm trying to do is keep the plane that the plane never changes. When I change the lines, for instance, If it gets really windy and rough, I can go to 68 feet. I could even go shorter. But that would be my first choice. 68 seems like that's the line length that'll just about go through anything. Hurricane, whatever. And I also want to have the solids. Now, every plane is different. This plane we've never had solids on. When you put solid lines on a plane, typically you can move the lead-outs a little further forward. You can add an extra foot of line length. There's a lot of maintenance involved wiping them down. I wipe them 3 times after I'm done flying, 3 times before I fly, and one of them walking them out to the handle. But sometimes you can just get that little extra bit of performance. Now in this case, when this plane is on 69-foot lines, I feel like that's about as far as I can get it out there and still be real safe to where I never have any risk of it's not going to stay out on the end of the line. But with the solids, it'll give me 1 extra foot. It gives me an extra foot at the top of the hourglass, at the top of the vertical 8. It spreads out the square 8 an extra foot. And of course, it's always one of the options you want to have, but you don't want to have it as the only choice. This is the way the medical wire has been coming. This is medical grade solid wire. You can see the polish on it is extremely high. It's certificated. There's a certificate comes with it that it's acceptable for insertion into the human body. So I don't know what that really means in medical terms, but it's the best wire of any of the grades of wire. It's the most expensive and it's the best. It's the least likely to tarnish or to have that tendency to stick together. Now, the answer is always with solid lines. Wipe them with isopropyl alcohol, 91%, or you're probably never going to have them stick. When you don't do the maintenance, that's when you run into the problem of, oh, they stick, maybe they stick, they don't stick, sometimes they stick. And you never use them early in the morning when the grass is wet. That's why I've not even bothered to even have them made up till now. Because early in the morning, this grass is soaking wet. We're in a marshland. And you wouldn't want to use them the last couple of flights just before dark. But once the grass dries out, you'll find. So what I'm going to do, I got out the tape measure, an extra old handle just from, I'm running out of handles is what's happening. And I want to make up the line spacing that I have on the other handle. And sometimes, another good point, sometimes when you get a handle with solids, you can actually move the lines in one slot, sometimes even 2, and still get the same corner, because what you're doing is eliminating the stretch. 018s, if you were to line them up on a bench, you'd notice 018s stretch in 70 feet about 4 inches. These stretch about 1.5 inches. So you do get a little bit more solid of a feel. I call it a real feel. And some people seem to really like solids, some people hate them. But if you have both, you can decide for yourself. That's always my feeling, decide for yourself. Just like most. And one of the things I always do is the spare wire that's extra, and you can see how nice and shiny this wire really is. This is not some kind of inexpensive wire. It's very expensive, but I think this is the stuff Jimmy Casale used to use to win in that. This is really good stuff. Anyway, I always take the extra, put it on a reel, and store it that way. I don't like to leave the bags. It comes in a bag and you have to thread it out, or you can take and just hold it in your hands and let it uncoil. But it's always better to store the extra right on a reel. And what I always do, a very good idea here, I run out 2 pieces of wire that's really longer than what I need. Wrap one end, then stake it right in here, run the ruler out, so that I can get my dimension. I don't wind up doing this in a driveway where I don't have a ruler. I want to try to make the solids maximum length. That's the object here. So I'll get the ruler out. These are 69 braids, and I'm trying to get the flight characteristics the same with the 70 solids, 69 braids, without having to redo tip weight and lead out rake and rudders and everything, so that I could just go from line to line to line and not have to retrim the plane. That's the object of doing this. Now, we ended this session having like 6-7 flights on the solids. So now what we have, and this is what we always want to wind up with, what we have now is choices. So we can kind of adapt this into the conditions that we're going to run into in Muncie. And I know from the past, whatever, how many fly-offs, usually when you get on the runway air, the solids are the way that you get an extra couple of feet of line length, and you maintain the tension all at the same time. So. And it's a power saver too, all at the same time for hot weather. So with all that, we're going to pack up and get back to the shop. It's been a good session and we got our lines under control. Now we're coming up on the last this might be the last shop session. If not, there'll be one more maybe. And what's happened, I always save this for the very last thing. Here's what really happens, and this is such an important thing, overlooked by many people. They build a plane, and when you spray on that lacquer or dope, it dries in like, I'll call it a semi-orange peel, just for lack of a better word, but usually it'll look like this. Now what'll happen is, because this dope is soft and new, this is kind of what it looks like at a microscopic level. So if you kind of can figure what's going to happen here out, it makes it a lot easier to deal with, and you get less frustrated. Now what will happen is, and usually we do this early, we do a rough buff. Now what that means is we've sanded down on a microscopic level. This is what they say this is going to look like. But there's still these little scratches. We've kissed off all the mountaintops with 1200 buff, but we still have these little scratches. Now it's hard to realize what's happening to this dope finish all the while now. It's been out in the sun 2 or 3 months, and at some point in time it is nice and flat. But now what happens is, you're in a damp cellar, it's 50 degrees. Well, it kind of shrinks down. It gets humid out. You know what happens when it's humid? The wood expands. You take it out in the sun, it gets dry, it stretches out. You bring it back down the cellar, just like that door that doesn't close on a rainy day. You take it out in the sun, back down the cellar. Back in the car, it's hot, it's humid, it's dry. So this is what's happening to this dope finish for this last, I don't know, amount of time. Let's say it's 2 months. Well, now what really is going to happen in the next week or so is I want to get the finish to look like this. So I'm going to take the whole plane, and basically this is not a long time consuming thing to do, because I don't have any mountaintops to deal with. I really only have those little half peaks, and from this is what I'd like it to look like. This is probably more like what it looks like now from being out in the sun. It's kind of well, the trick now is to take wherever you want to get it flattened out. Sometimes you don't even need 1200, just use Gorhams and buff it back down. Now right now the dope is not soft and new, it's old and hard. Now in an all perfect world, if we could do this, obviously this gets into the point of being where it's undoable. We would like to wait till 15 minutes before we go to concourse judging, make sure it's in the total shade, make sure the plane never gets out in the sun. See, none of these things are doable because we're competing. But if you were to make a plane, and I know several people have done this, is they haven't flown the plane until they get to the net so that it would be pristine. Well, that really wouldn't make it when you have to compete with the top level people. But being that the finish is old and hard, it's relatively easy to get it to knock right down and have some reflectivity. And it's that reflectivity that we're looking for, the flatness. If there's any little grain left or any little imperfection, right now I got the better part of what's going to be a rainy day. It looks like it's going to rain any minute. I'm going to spend the rest of this day going over the plane with a fine-tooth comb with some Gorhams, some wax, and try to get, usually where the fillets are, there's some little bubbles, little touch-up. I have all those little jars of touch-up paint, and then pack the plane up to go to the nets. But if I was to do this in February, by now, this would be flat. I'd be right back to where I started from. So it's always good to wait till as close to the bottom of the ninth with 2 outs to do this. That's what usually will, for the least amount of work, you'll get the most amount of result. But here's an unexpected treat. I was at a hobby shop last night, a local hobby shop, and he had a box of Rev Up props. Of course, 90% of them were all the sizes 12, 19s and stuff that nobody uses. But I did manage to dig up one 14.5 Rev Up. So what I'm going to do with this today, or within, if I have time later today, get it all stripped down and make a complete replica of the prop that's on the plane now. See, that, after trying props back and forth infinitely here, I've come to the conclusion that I really need about, for that plane, 12.5 inches of diameter. So I want to make this one an exact replica. See, I have them 12 and 5/8, I have 12 and 3/8, but I really only have one 12.5. So what it'll give me is an exact spare of the prop that proved to be the best in the time that we had available here. Well, you can see how much I'm trying to hold this in the middle. how much cutting and carving there is to make a 14 or 12 and a half. But believe me, you do a lot of testing, and to get the pitch just right, I'll pull this. I won't do this on camera. I'll get the pitch, the little stick that we have out, make sure I'm getting exactly the same pitch. This one, we had many fly-offs, and it looks like exactly 12 and a half inches, at least for here. So this is the only chance I have is to make a wild guess. I wouldn't want to cut this to 12. Now, if you're in doubt, if you weren't sure this was going to be the proper choice, what's a good idea is make the thing 12 3/4, because you can always go out there and trim another little bit off the blades. But once you cut it down to 11 and a half, it's an 11 and a half inch prop. So if in doubt, leave it a little bit bigger. Now, one last little thing worth mentioning, and this came out in the last day of flying, the last 2 days maybe. Let me just make a little sketch here. It's easier to storyboard this up, because this is something this applies to all planes. I want to deal with the wheels here most of all. What has happened in the course of doing all this testing is I've had 1 3/4, 2 inch, and 2 1/4. And actually I had on one time 2 1/2 inch wheels on here. I tried all 4 of these wheels. Now, the symptoms that'll happen, and this will happen just about every plane I've ever tried fine-tuning or trimming or whatever, almost everyone has responded the same. As the wheels get smaller in this direction, you'll get more inside turn. And I want to make note of this, because this was kind of a significant thing. Now, one of the things I'd done, I had taken a handle, and let me get this on the camera. This is a significant thing. This is something I think everybody, just give me a second here, I think everybody that's real serious about this, and we're not trying to make the Wizard of Oz here or anything, but this is serious stuff. This is something you can really put in the bank. Let's say you had 5 choices of where you were going to put your lines. Okay? Now, on many of the planes, nothing seemed to happen to the outside turns no matter what wheels I had on here, but the inside turn, and I assume what's happening is as this is making the inside turn, this is acting like a little parachute. The wheels always act like a little parachute anyway. But so what's happened is, in the course of trimming this plane, is I've always had a biased handle where it's had more up than down. I've always had a little more up, and the cable was always 1 or 2 notches higher on that side than on this side. But what's happened now, the last day of flying, or even the last 2 days, I don't remember, is I went and put the 2 inch wheels on. I had the 2 1/4s. The 2 1/2s were just too big. They were that was just for flying over rough grass. The 2 1/4s, I was losing that inside turn. And when I went to 1 3/4, but you can't fly over grass. That was out of the question. The thing is just nose over. Even with Mike cutting the rest. What I found out is from going to 2 1/4 to 2, I was able to bring the handle in to symmetry. So the turn went back to being equal. I was able to reduce the up spacing to 2 inch wheels. Now what that would mean, let's say you're doing an Nobler. You know, just a good example of a plane a lot of people are trimming. And it has a weak inside turn, or it's hesitant to turn insides real hard. Well, one of the things that you could do very nice and easily is reduce the size of the wheels. Another thing you could do, and this I know works. I've done this enough times. You can either take the wheel pants off or make a lighter or a smaller set. Now, if you remember back with the Green Cardinal, the 20-pointer, we had flown that basically with 2 1/4 inch wheels so we could fly over grass. And when we put wheel pants on it, I had put 1 3/4 wheels to fly on tar, at the Nats of course, and little tiny wheel pants that really belonged on a 35 size ship, a Nobler. All of a sudden, I had an inside turn you couldn't believe. It was an unbelievable transition just from the wheels. Always remember, the landing gear are acting like little parachutes. As this plane is trying to fly forward, as it wants to go forward, the wheels are trying to make it nose down. So a lot of times, just experimenting with various wheel pant landing gear combinations. Of course, the same thing happens too if you make the landing gear longer. Now, I've noticed a lot of the guys that fly up in New England have these tremendous gear that would clear a 20-inch prop. Yeah, that's real nice for grass, but you're losing inside turn. You'd always like to get that you have that half-inch of prop clearance, but to have a ridiculous amount of prop clearance, where it's going to hurt you is the inside turn, and you'll wind up with a handle that the inside line is way too far away to get the same corner. So, again, I've reproved this out with the Seafire. The landing gear, wheel, and the relationship of where it is. By moving the gear forward, you're going to lose turn. So, obviously, if you're on tar, you want to be back, and we've done that enough times on tape. And the length of the gear, and the weight, and the drag ratio. In other words, if you have wheels, big fat wheels, and you put on needle nose wheels, you're going to see it turns a lot tighter with the needle nose wheels. So just understanding what actually is happening, it'll be a big asset to you when you go to trim your next plane. Now, I hope all this is information we've come across really just by doing it over and over and over again. There's no college courses. There's nobody you can really call and say, oh yeah, they've proven this all out by computer. It's really a seat-of-the-pants thing, but it really does work. And what it does, by sharing it, you're going to be able to get your plane in better trim. Let's hope everybody gets their plane in better trim. And then you have meaningful contests. You don't go to a contest, one guy doesn't know this, one guy does, and you think he's the better flyer, but he really isn't. He's just better at keeping secrets. It's a lot of nonsense. If you want to have meaningful contests, everybody's got to have a fair shot at trimming the plane. So, all right, I want to get the Seafire in here and try to buff that paint out if I can. I always like to, number one, look over the whole model and find whatever the biggest flaw is. And down here there's plenty of little touch-up spots I need to touch to paint them. Clean the thing with M600 and do all the little touch-ups first. So now that can be sitting drying while I'm doing the buffing, and then when I do wind up working my way over there, I can buff right over it. Again, I've tried a lot of stuff. Nothing really beats Gorham's. And you notice at this point, the older the finish gets, it really doesn't take a long time. A nice clean sock. If you don't have any teenage kids wearing these athletic socks, adopt one. Now, because this model has so little clear on it, this really has a lot less than we normally put on. I'm going to be really extra careful if I see an ink line starting to disappear or some other little flaw. Well, it'll be time to stop right then and there. Now see right here, I can see the yellow. I'm already picking up yellow. So it's time to quit. That's about as far as that little section is going to go. And it shouldn't take a whole lot longer than waxing the whole plane. But it's these little details and it's the little things that really, when you see all the beautiful planes at the nets, it separates those front row planes. This is the little spot that we just did. Let me just say this. Look, you can see my finger reflecting there. I didn't see that. Look at the spot we haven't done yet. Well, this has a little bit of gush on it, but you can see the difference in the shine. And believe me, well, look here, that's pretty close. You can see the difference that little bit of extra work makes. Yeah, it takes an extra hour or so to do this, and maybe I'll spend an hour, hour and a half, or some amount of time. But every little bit, even the feel is nice. It just has that nice feel. Then I'll finish the whole plane up with final shine when I'm done. Go around, touch up as many little spots as I did, and there's plenty little spots where there's, especially there's one back here I wanted to. This is something I made a mistake on. There's a spot right back here. You can see where the stooge has been. This is a razor edge, and the stooge has been catching this. So what I'm going to do on the next model is run a little piece of carbon fiber or glass out about 3 inches, just so the stooge isn't hitting that. That was one of the little flaws I could have avoided, and I'll try to touch that up if I can. Actually, I want to really spend some time with it. I want to carve a little piece of wood and get a piece of the sock so that I can actually buff in by the fillets. Getting the fillets nice and shiny is another important little thing I want to do. But basically, if you see the difference, this is one of the things a lot of people kind of settle for, and they just say, yeah, I already buffed the plane out. Well, even though you did, it's nice if you can get that extra little bit on there, that extra little bit that really makes it a special operation. See, now I'm always looking around for little flaws. Now I can see I'm almost through the ink lines here on the first buff, so I'm going to try to avoid the ink lines. Now, an average person doesn't really have to do this because you're going to have that extra clear on there. Now, of course, I've kind of really skimped on the clear here, which is why this plane is a little bit lighter than it probably really should be. But next year's I-beamer, we're going to put the absolute full finish. We are going to have a finish on that plane. And in all the conversations I've had with Joe, he's just as excited as I am about working on that I-beamer. He's got plans made, ribs cut. I don't know if he's got time to do the prototype. We want to do a prototype half wing section. And if you've never done a sock, the sock is so much nicer than doing paper towels. Now see, what I'm trying to do is avoid going over those ink lines if I can. Gorham's is so user-friendly to work with that it's... keep getting these things in the mail from people that substitute for Gorham's, and they're $19, and they work about 3/4 as good. Now you can always, even if you want to do this, just reverse the sock, but try to avoid going over any spot where you see the ink line even starting to get thin. That's your little indicator. And it's really the detail work. It's this is, you know, there's going to be 20, 25 beautiful planes out there. Really, that probably half of them are going to be out of the front row or second row because they didn't take that extra little hour, that extra little effort. And a lot of people accuse me of stuff, of whatever, not knowing what I'm doing or whatever, but nobody accuses me of not working hard. Nobody is that foolish to think they're going to get away with that one. You just finish up each one with some final shine. It also shows you any little spot that you might have missed, which is another advantage of using the final shine. Sometimes you can take that little seam that's on a sock and get it right in the fillet as an alternative. I like to do a piece of wood though. This is really not going to do it, but at least it's one other way to do it, to get that fillet real nice. Well, when paint gets old, even the hinge lines buff up nice. You can fold the end of that sock up and get right in the hinge line. And even though it's nice to buff the plane when it's new, boy, once it's been sitting in the sun for a while, it bakes up, and boy, when it's a year old, like if we went and buffed out Strago at a Spitfire, oh, piece of cake. Dope has a good characteristic of it. It gets easier to buff as it gets older. One of the things I wanted to do too, I wanted to wait till a day before we're leaving, pull this canopy apart, because I can buff the inside of it, touch up any little things that are loose, scratched, whatever. And I have some little, I've made a couple little improvements to this. I have some little rubber, I guess they're kind of spongy things, like vibration dampeners. But you can see this is the only oil that gets in the whole plane. The pilot is absolutely dry. This is all I've done the last couple of times. We could do a little cleanup in there. Anything looks loose, little maintenance, and then of course just put the guy back on. One of the things that needed to be touched up, there was some paint missing on that. That needed a little touch up. There's a couple little spots around the fillet that I touched up with a brush. I'm going to let that dry before I buff it out. But I want to take that canopy. And see, now that it's off, now I can get all the little goop. There is some goop in there. But this has been on for 100 flights. Clean it all up. Do a little buffing on it. Again, just another thing, Gorham's is good for any canopy, really. It doesn't have to be one of these fancy things. this is a real important thing too. Whenever you have a canopy, if you bend this back and forth, it'll oil can and snap. So what I've been trying to do is find a spot on my hand. Actually, one of the things I could use here, if I really thought about it, maybe I could use the mold itself to hold it, but this will get me through the day. Again, just one more thing you can do with Gorhams is buffing canopies, and boy, they buff up like jewelry. This is really nice material that Dave molded these out of. This is not the, the bottom of the barrel cheap stuff when you get your 10-cent canopies and plastic models or whatever. This is really good material. Now, a couple of the other little detail things that I did, and I guess these are significant. The old PJ1, let me have that little hatch in the back. What the hell is it? Chain loop. I always like to, just before a big contest, disassemble a hatch, get some chain lube in there on both pivots of the horn. I always like to put a little bit, even though castor oil gets in there, a little bit of the chain lube, which is real capillary, will get in, and make sure the controls are everything is as free and greased, ready to go. I put a drop of that PJ1 on the wheels, cleaned this oil up. By the way, the buffing came out not too bad, not too shabby. Canopy even looks good. And I'm going around, I'm always looking. So as I'm walking around, I'm always looking for things, little scratches. People pick up the plane, including myself, I pick up the plane. You can see there's a little spot here. I don't know if you can see this on the camera, where there must have been a blob of raw fuel hit it. In the past, what I've done is I've tried to buff this out, but it just doesn't come out. So that's probably one of the things I'm going to have to really live with. Fillets came out nice. Almost everything around here. I get some Q-tips in and clean the hinges up. I really just the general walk around, just like when you're a real pilot on a real plane. You walk around, look for anything that looks loose or shaking or breaking or whatever. But it's all the little details. And see, that's the point that a lot of people are flying and find they never check anything. I don't know. And even when you check things still break. So I did a little repair on this a while back where the pin that holds this in was getting a little sloppy. I put a little piece of tubing around it that made it nice. Otherwise, you get a little vibration in there. It also adds a little buzzing noise to the sound of the engine, which I'm not crazy about. Those little rubber grommets work nice in there. Make sure my little rotor linkage isn't loose or popping. A little bit of chain lube on that too will be good. But it's just this general walk around, check the maintenance. At the same time you're doing it, look for spots where somebody might have put their ring in a plane or something in the plane. And there is one up here, somewhere here, right here. Who the hell knows if a stone hit it or what, but I really don't have enough time now to repaint that, and I would have to repaint that black spot. I don't want to have a blob there either. But overall, we've made the preparation, and I guess this is the point of everything. We made the preparation. This is right now as we get ready to pack or load or whatever it is that we're going to do with the van. I still don't know if we're going to be able to get 3 planes in the van. John's taken the cardinal sin as of today anyway. But the little walking around and the little planning that you do, all the little things, it just adds to, I guess, the fun of the whole thing. We're looking back now. This time last year, we were taking the old Spitfire down, and we didn't know if that would be well received or not. The hate mail was flowing like water, and I guess the hate mail's flowing this year too. But beside the point, it's not going to deter our fun. It's not going to keep us from having a good time. I think this plane is, at least right now, far better than the Spitfire was in a lot of ways. The aerodynamic changes that we made to it over the winter certainly have made this a more competitive plane. It seems to have more little bells and whistles, which again, you don't know if people are going to be impressed or not. It's always in the eye of the beholder. I would never assume anything one way or the other. But again, that's the fun of the hobby. That's the fun of stunt. That's the fun of everything that we do, is that it really isn't so totally predictable. It isn't just like you draft Michael Jordan and you know you're going to win the championships. There's always something that you haven't taken into account. There's always the unpredictableness of it all. And what's nice this year is we're going with, this will be the backup plane. And hopefully knowing just that we have a real competitive backup plane that's similar but not exactly the same. It'll add a little bit to the fun. The dimension of flying, the dimension of having the planes in the room, everybody fondling them and checking them out and everything, so it'll be fun. And I'm looking forward to going. Most of all, next thing I got to get my my acting gear. I got to get John to bring down some carpet foam. And hey, for what it's worth, bada bing, I got to tell you, we've gone to many big contests together, and he is one of the most fun travel companions there is. I got the opera tapes loaded up, and I know he stopped his drinking. You could depend on him to stay awake for most of the time he's driving. I have caught him napping once in a while, though. But anyway, we're looking forward to a great time. If you're a subscriber to the tapes, you're going to get them automatically. You don't even have to send a message. If you're not a subscriber, just let me know, and we'll share the love, the experience, the camaraderie, the pain, the agony of defeat. Hey, and we hope it's going to be a successful, fun time for everybody involved. Everybody, even the people that write hate mail. Another thing, just to mention things that I really do enjoy. You know, there are rewards. There's a rewards for everything, and awards, rewards, awards. But there's one thing that's really special that I always get. Usually the week or a couple of days before the Nats, and I've already gotten 2 calls, one from Bill Hummel, one from Steve DeJulia wishing me good luck, and I don't know. I kind of enjoy that just as much as, you know, looking up on a shelf and seeing a big trophy and seeing my picture in a magazine that I'm about a Bing or something. Anyway, I really do appreciate the people that have called so far and have at least led me to believe that maybe they're rooting for me, maybe one way or another. But we're having a lot of fun with this. And most of the fun comes from, at least for me anyway, is the camaraderie among the people. Because one way or another, in the end, that's all you're going to wind up with. All of these, and hey, there's the trophy right up there. I don't know, it doesn't keep me much company. I'd rather have the phone calls. Anyway, let's get loaded. Get some of this stuff loaded anyway. Now, I always take plenty of junk. Because I've been criticized. I take all my touch-up paint, Gorham, soldering irons. One of the things I always try to do is get everything in boxes that are the same size. These are Taffender fuel boxes. We just got 40 gallons of fuel, so we have a lot of these. But if everything's in the same size box, it's easy to load up. It just makes it easier to load it up and stack it. And I don't know, again, this is going to be a challenge for all of us. John doesn't travel light. He's got to take his hair dryers and his pink underwear and everything. And so by the time we get this van loaded up, I have no illusions. It's going to be a big job. Now in today's mail, just got some really really nice pictures of Jeff Wilhide's plane, and I hope we're going to see Jeff at the Nats. Hope we're going to see him real soon. In fact, now Jeff, he flies like a corporate jet, I guess. And usually when he does get to come to Teterboro, we have in the past, go out and get some lunch or some pizza or who knows what, jiggle some go-go girls or whatever. But anyway, hey Jeff, look forward to seeing this plane in real life. It looks real nice, and we will see you at the Nats, my boy. And one of the final things, and this is my personal little philosophy, I always bring 2 planes. I know other people bring one, and their point of view is that if you crash the first plane, you won't be competitive with the second one. Well, that may be true, but I'm going there for more than the competition. I want to fly. So if, for instance, we did make this big 13-hour ride out there, and for whatever reason couldn't fly to Seafire, I'd like to have last year's plane. So I always try to bring 2 planes. I always bring 2 planes. There's another reason. It's an easy way for me to carry a complete power package that isn't even disturbed. The tank, the shims, the motor, the prop. And so it gives me even one additional thing of backup parts. Now, of course, in this plane, the landing gear switch, the prop switch, everything. Half of the cowlings probably switch. No, the cowlings don't switch. Anyway, there's a whole point. The other point of this is when you know you have a good backup plane that's sitting there ready to go, you can get a little more aggressive about your flying. And obviously that's part of, in the back of your mind, you think, gee, if I just... you're always one strike away from being out of the game. This gives you 2 strikes anyway. And it proved to be a good point that in, was it 92, when we lost the yellow Cardinal, or crashed it, I should say, that having the green backup plane, now if that wasn't top 20 day, if that was just one of the flying days, I think I would have made it back into the finals. Well, that's all hearsay now. But I always sleep better and feel better about having 2 planes there. Now, that's my point of view. I won't be able to do that at the team trails because obviously we're leaving right for vacation, but this plane in particular flies a lot like the Seafire, so I really do have a little bit of it's like having 2 Noblers that fly the same. And I can always interchange all of the parts, the mufflers, the props, the ventilator. There's a lot of things that switch here, so tanks, for instance. So it gives me really 2 really good choices without a lot of extra work. I want to put the spare set of gear on this. I've got the tar gear on the Seafire. Get this all polished and waxed. In fact, get both of them ready to put in the car. It's coming up on that lovely time of packing the car. Now, I like to think one advantage that I have over some people, maybe not everybody certainly, but some, is I'm very comfortable with the idea, or used to the idea, of having an adequate supply of spare parts. Now, these are the screws for the spinner, and you can see I have 2 bags. So what I pack for a big trip like this, I mean, you can imagine what this will do is you drive all the way out to Muncie, 13-hour ride. You're paying probably $500 to $600 for this contest, trip, motel, whatever, and you lose your bag of screws. Or you lose one little part that, oh, now you have to switch spinners, and now you have to do something else, and all of a sudden this whole contest is turning out to be a nightmare. It could be very simple. In fact, these are the wrong size screws. Good thing I checked them. These are the ones I want to bring. I always like to, and I guess it's from my time of racing motorcycles that I learned the hard, painful way. You need extra tires, you need extra pistons, you need extra rims, you need extra chains and sprockets and carburetors or whatever. But if you don't have the parts with you, if they're home, it's exactly the same as not having them. Or then what you have to do is you have to play doggy. You have to go, woof, woof. Can I please have a spare part? Woof, woof. Give me a propeller. Woof, woof, woof. And I don't like playing poodle, man. I don't go for that. I would rather be the guy that they have to come to, and I'd certainly not use that as some kind of a ha-ha, I got it and you don't, but what I'm saying is I really think that my background and all that racing, one thing I learned from it is always bring the spare parts, have everything organized, and bring everything that you need, and then let the chips fall where they may. So that's the final little piece of this puzzle right now. Now here's this is actually not even the bag for the Seafire, this is the bag for the Spitfire. It has all the extra parts. I don't know what that's doing in there. It has the gear, the grass gear, it has the tar gear, it has the spare gear. So we're pretty much ready, as the long grass gear. We're pretty much ready to, if we have to, we can adjust the vertical CG. We have plenty of spare wheels. You really never have enough wheels. At Muncie, by the way, I'll just show you this. I don't know if you've got one that's worn out. I was wearing out a wheel every afternoon. I was changing the wheels on a plane. The tar out there is like, I don't know how I threw the wheels away. They were so worn down. They were worn. Here's just an example. The things have almost no tread on them. The whole side would wear out on the inside of the circle from pulling it in at you. So I learned a valuable lesson, is bring a lot of wheels. Bring a lot of gear, and this gives us a lot of choices now. This is what we want, is choices. Plenty of gear, plenty of choices. And we can also switch the gear from the Seafire to the Spitfire. We can go back and forth. This is what I like about having, another advantage of building the same plane 2 or 3 or 4 times is now all your spare parts all fit. They all match. They're all the same. It's really, and we're going to be building that I-beam next year, that Mark 21. All this stuff will fit right on it. It'll be one more advantage, I hope. And needless to say, before I put this away, I'll take the whole thing and clean it up. And hopefully we won't even need it. Hopefully it'll stay in a motel room the whole week. But But just in case we do, boy, it's a shame to make that ride out there. And believe me, I know how bad it feels when you whack a plane at the Nats. Everybody's flying and having fun, and you're sitting there. It's not fun. Anyway, clean this guy up. And actually, he's really still in pretty good shape. He's ready. There isn't a whole lot to retrim, and the handle is probably still set from the last time we flew it. So a cleanup, he'll be a good backup plane. And that's a good philosophy to have anyway, is always use last year's plane, assuming you build one every year. Once it's trimmed out, leave the handle set, the lines and everything, and kind of just use it as a backup ship for the next year. So you're always working on, like they're drafting a new quarterback when he gets his whatever training, use him for the new quarterback. You use him for the backup quarterback. I'll tell you, there's a little special feeling you get from, I guess, looking back. Now I'm looking back 2 years when I considered a Spitfire. Between the Spitfire and the Seafire, and I mean, this is, I guess, and it's an exceptionally emotional day for me. This represents the 2 years that Joe and I have worked together developing this plane, and all the modifications, the longer tail, the wider body, all the molding techniques that have gone into it. And I just can't imagine that I could have had more fun, or in my own eyes been more successful at replicating one of the planes that I've loved all my life. And every time I wax this down and clean it up, I keep thinking, I know Joe is home right now, and he's probably wishing he could, well, I know he's wishing he could go to the Nats, hey. But I look at these two guys, and there's just something about these two. They're like a matched pair, a matched set, or whatever, bookends or salt and pepper shakers or whatever. And I really hope they're both going to go down in history as planes that, at least for me, were a lot of fun to have around. Very interesting. Helped a lot of people understand some of the basic aspects of building and finishing. These two. It's hard for, this is going to be a hard act to follow. Let's be realistic. But I have a feeling when you see that I-beam wing with the carbon beam, and you can build a wing right on the beam like we're planning, it has those 57 ribs. I just can't believe that it's not going to be even better than this, and it's something I'm looking forward to seeing. I'm looking forward to, and that's another thing, it's really important, is when you work with a guy like Joe, everything is fun. You know, every time we have a phone call, something that let me tell you what happened at work, I got carbon fiber this or that, I made carbon fiber shoelaces or whatever. Always a lot of fun. Now, we're near the end of the video. I'm going to close this out with some really neat photos that came in the mail today. This actually came the day I'm leaving here. And I'll read this. This is from Fred Cronenwet, and this is the guy that sent us all those real neat real aircraft photos. Well, 3 or 4 times. He also sent us the video of the pilot taken from the plane in flight. So I'm just going to run through this real quick. Enclosed is some photos from the Bob Palmer Classic held in the Los Angeles area. Held for the first time last year with Bob Palmer himself as one of the judges and guest of honor. This contest is getting better each year. Bob Palmer was there again this year and handed out the awards in person. There were several airplanes that I thought you might find interesting. The dark camouflage Spitfire was built from your plans, and the light camouflage plane is an 85% reduction by Bill Howe. He used an OS-25 with a pipe, if I remember correctly. Anyway, we have no pictures of this plane so far. This looks pretty cool. A nice picture of Ron Cook's Trivial Pursuit. Picture, this Lark was built and flown by Ed Southwick, another stunt legend who attended the contest. Wild Bill Netzband showed up with his flying wing. I'm just reading these as I go through. These two here have Bob Palmer's AMA number is 610, and of course the Vico decals on the skyscraper. This looks like Bob Whiteley's Shark. Not sure though. I can't read the AMA number. Anyway, there's a nice photo. Now we know who built that Spitfire. Hey, that looks real nice. And by the way, that's something I don't have, is the scaled down plans, of course. This one here has some really unusual color camouflage. It really actually looks gray in the pictures anyway. It looks real nice. Hey, I'm sure Joe is going to love seeing these when he gets his copy of the video. Nice exhaust stacks. Hey, just remember I also have that Sterling Spitfire kit that I got from John Brodak. Imagine getting all these Spitfires out at the field the same day. There's Leroy Black's P-47. I don't know if that's a copy of Billy Woolridge's plane or if it's an original. It doesn't say in the photo captions that Fred sent. Now I remember, I can't remember the guy's name, but he had the Vico decals reproduced. Oh God, I can't remember his name. He used to live in New England. Shows you what I know. And he moved to Colorado. So it looks like it has the original Vico decals. And by the way, I still have original skyscraper plans if anybody's interested, but this cuff in the wing would look real good on a Mustang. If you're doing some kind of semi-scale Mustang, you could use his way of doing it, which is obviously an excellent way of doing it. And more of the decals on the little T-Bird. And of course Ron Cook stuff, immaculate, beautiful finish, Midgley kind of coloration, warp play Midgley. Whoa! Anyway, I'll send Fred out some photos of our local area here for his collection. I appreciate it a whole lot, and this is, I don't know, I guess this is what I really love about the hobby. The friendships that you make, all these little relationships, it's really a lot of fun. And seeing all these Spitfires, just unbelievable. He even made the little shield down there, that's kind of cool. The Joe Adamusco little shield. Anyway, appreciate these a whole lot. Fred, thanks a whole lot, and I'll get some out to you today. Then we're going to close out the video with a couple of just fun things. This is some pictures. Well, it's only one picture from Walt Prey. This is his latest plane, the Indian Summer, and he has been doing a lot of testing with all different motors. I hope we're going to have a report on that soon, or find out from him directly how the motors. He's working with a K&B. He's working with a Randy motor, a Double Star, and I assume he's going to have plenty of test planes. So, hey, Walt, the work looks good. The woodwork looks awesome. I gotta go get my hair cut for the Nats, and the next time you see me, the Nats will already be over. Maybe my life will be over, who knows. Hey, we'll try to have a great time, and if you're subscribing, you'll be getting the videos automatically. Have a great time. See you after the Nats.